The massive doors of the throne room burst open with a thunder that made every servant jump in fear. Queen Myraheth sat on her crystal throne, her purple skin darker than usual with barely controlled rage. Her 4 eyes blazed with an intensity that made even her most trusted advisors step back. The morning had started like any other day in the Velthari Empire. But then the reports came in. Reports that shattered everything the Queen believed about her perfect daughter. "Explain this to me again," the Queen said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Slowly." High Advisor Kormal stepped forward, his hands trembling as he held the data pad. He had served the Queen for 40 years and had never seen her this angry. Not during wars, not during political scandals. Nothing compared to this moment. "Your Majesty, our intelligence network on the outer colonies discovered that Princess Nalaris has been involved with one of the humans from the exchange program. They were married in a small ceremony 6 months ago, and now the medical scanners show that she is carrying a child." The Queen's claws dug into the armrests of her throne, leaving deep scratches in the ancient metal. Around the throne room, the gathered nobles and officials stood frozen. Nobody dared to speak. Nobody dared to even breathe too loudly. "A human," the Queen repeated, as if saying the word would make it less real. "My daughter married a human. Those weak, short-lived creatures who only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Those beings who die after barely a century. Those primitives who still fight wars over resources on their own planet." "Yes, Your Majesty," Kormal confirmed miserably. The Queen stood up, her full height of 9 feet making everyone in the room feel small. Her ceremonial robes flowed around her like liquid silver. She walked down from her throne, each step echoing in the silent chamber. "What is his name?" she demanded. "Taemin, Your Majesty. He came to our world 2 years ago as part of the diplomatic exchange program. He works as an engineer at the main orbital station." "An engineer?" The Queen spat the word like it was poison. "Not even a warrior, not even a scholar, a simple mechanic." Elder Kirasol, the oldest member of the council, carefully cleared her throat. "Your Majesty, if I may speak?" The Queen turned her burning gaze on the elder. "What could you possibly say to make this situation better?" "The law, Your Majesty. The ancient law of our people forbids members of the royal family from marrying outside our species. This law has stood for 3,000 years. It exists to protect the purity of the royal bloodline and ensure the strength of our empire." "I know the law," the Queen shouted. "I helped enforce it when my own cousin wanted to marry a Drathian diplomat. I exiled him for even suggesting such a thing. And now my own daughter, the heir to my throne, has not only broken this law, but has created a hybrid child." The word hybrid hung in the air like a curse. Nobody in living memory had heard of such a thing. The Velthari were a proud people. They had built an empire that spanned 12 star systems. They had technology that most species could only dream of. They had culture and art that was celebrated across the galaxy. And now, the royal family was mixed with human blood. "Bring them here," the Queen ordered. "Bring both of them to me immediately. I want to see my daughter's face when she explains this betrayal, and I want to see this human who dared to touch my child." "Your Majesty," Kormal said carefully, "Princess Nalaris is still at the orbital station. It will take several hours to transport them safely." "I don't care if it takes 1 hour or 10 hours. Bring them, now." The advisors bowed and rushed out of the throne room to carry out the Queen's orders. Only Elder Kirasol remained behind, watching the Queen pace back and forth like a caged predator. "You have something more to say, Elder?" the Queen asked without looking at her. "I remember when Princess Nalaris was born," Kirasol said softly. "You held her in your arms and swore you would give her the best life possible. You said you would protect her from all harm. You said you would let her choose her own path as much as possible within her duties." That was before she chose to destroy everything I built for her, the queen replied bitterly. Or perhaps she chose to build something new, the elder suggested. The galaxy is changing, Your Majesty. The old ways are not always the best ways. These humans, they are different from us. But different does not always mean lesser. The queen stopped pacing and faced the elder. You would have me accept this? You would have me welcome this human into my family and pretend that everything is fine? I would have you listen before you judge, Kirasol said. I have lived long enough to see many things that seemed impossible become reality. When I was young, we thought we were alone in the universe. Then we met the Drethians and learned we were not special. Then came the humans, and we learned that intelligence can take many forms. Perhaps it is time to learn that love can cross any boundary. The queen wanted to argue. She wanted to rage and scream and tear down the walls. But something in the elder's words made her pause. She remembered holding Nalaris as a baby. She remembered teaching her daughter to walk, to speak, to think. She remembered every smile, every laugh, every moment of joy. And she remembered promising that she would always love her daughter no matter what. But this was too much. I will listen, the queen finally said. I will let them speak. But if this human cannot give me a good reason why I should not throw him into the deepest prison cell in the Empire, then I will not hesitate to separate him from my daughter forever. And if Nalaris chooses him over her duty to our people, then she will face the same punishment her cousin faced. Exile. Kirasol bowed her head. That is all I ask, Your Majesty. Justice tempered with wisdom. The queen returned to her throne and sat down heavily. The next few hours would determine the future of her family and possibly her entire empire. She thought about the human called Taman. What kind of person could convince her careful, intelligent, dutiful daughter to break the most sacred law of their people? What could he possibly offer that was worth throwing away a throne and a legacy? She would have her answers soon. And depending on those answers, the human would either leave her world alive or in pieces. The transport ship landed in the palace courtyard just as the third sun began to set. Queen Myra-Eth watched from her private observation deck as the doors opened and two figures stepped out. Her daughter walked with her head held high, her hand firmly grasping the hand of the human beside her. The queen felt her anger surge again at the sight. Taman was smaller than most Velthari, as all humans were. He stood at what the queen guessed was about 6 feet tall, barely reaching her daughter's shoulder. His skin was that strange pale color that humans had, and his hair was dark and short. He wore simple clothes, not the formal attire one would expect when meeting a queen. But what struck the queen most was his expression. He showed no fear. His eyes were calm and steady as he walked beside Nalaris toward the palace entrance. The queen left the observation deck and returned to her throne room. She sat and waited, her fingers drumming impatiently on the armrest. The doors opened and the royal guards entered first, followed by her daughter and the human. Princess Nalaris looked so much like her mother. She had the same purple skin, the same 4 eyes, the same proud bearing. But there was something different about her now. She looked tired, and there was a small curve to her belly that showed the early stages of pregnancy. The queen's heart ached at the sight, but she forced her face to remain cold. "Mother," Nalaris said, bowing her head respectfully. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." "I did not agree to anything," the queen said sharply. "I ordered you here to explain your betrayal of everything our family stands for." Taman started to speak, but Nalaris touched his arm gently, silencing him. She stepped forward, leaving him behind. "It is not a betrayal, Mother. It is a choice I made with a clear mind and an open heart." "A choice?" The queen's voice rose. "You call breaking our most sacred law a choice? You call producing a hybrid child a choice? Do you understand what you have done? You have made yourself unfit to rule. You have disgraced our family name. You have violated laws that have protected our people for thousands of years. Those laws are wrong, Nalaris said quietly, and the entire room gasped. Nobody spoke against the ancient laws. Nobody questioned the traditions that held their society together. The queen stood up, her full height towering over her daughter. "Explain yourself. Now." Nalaris took a deep breath. 2 years ago, there was an accident at the orbital station. Do you remember? The reactor nearly melted down. The explosion would have killed 3,000 people working on that station, including me. The queen remembered. She had been terrified when she heard the news. Her daughter had been on that station for an inspection tour when the reactor systems failed. But the crisis had been resolved, and Nalaris had returned home safely. "Our best engineers could not solve the problem," Nalaris continued. "They tried everything they knew, every solution they had. Nothing worked. The reactor was going to explode, and we had 20 minutes before total failure. I thought I was going to die that day, Mother. I accepted my fate." She turned and looked at Taman with such love that the queen felt something twist inside her chest. And then this human, this engineer who everyone dismissed as primitive and simple, stepped forward. He looked at the reactor for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, and then he started giving orders. He told our engineers to do things they thought were crazy. He had them reverse the coolant flow and vent the pressure through the emergency systems in a sequence nobody had ever tried before. He used techniques that were not in any of our manuals or training programs. "It worked?" the queen asked, already knowing the answer. "It worked," Nalaris confirmed. "The reactor stabilized with 2 minutes to spare. 3,000 lives saved because a human thought differently than we did. Because he was not bound by our rules and our traditions. Because he looked at a problem and saw solutions we could not imagine." The queen sat back down slowly. She had read the report about the reactor incident, but it had been technical and brief. It had not mentioned that a human had been responsible for the solution. "After that day, I started talking to him," Nalaris said. "I wanted to understand how his mind worked, how he could see things we could not see. We spent hours together discussing engineering, science, philosophy, art. I learned that humans may be younger than us as a species, but they have experienced things we have not. They have struggled in ways we have not. And that struggle has made them creative and adaptable and strong in different ways." "So you fell in love with him because he fixed a reactor?" the queen asked coldly. "I fell in love with him because he is kind," Nalaris said simply. "Because he makes me laugh. Because he challenges me to think differently. Because he sees me not as a princess or a symbol, but as a person. Because when I am with him, I am not just the heir to the throne. I am Nalaris, just myself, and that is something I have never had before." The queen looked at Taman, who had remained silent through all of this. "And you? What do you have to say for yourself, human?" Taman stepped forward and bowed deeply. When he spoke, his voice was respectful but firm. "Your Majesty, I did not come to your world looking for love. I came to learn and to help build bridges between our peoples. But I found something I did not expect. I found someone who saw past the fact that I am human and you are Velthari, someone who cared about who I am inside." "Pretty words," the queen said dismissively. "But words are cheap. You have broken our laws. You have taken advantage of my daughter's position. You have created a situation that threatens the stability of my entire empire." "Then punish me," Taman said calmly. "Exile me. Imprison me. Do whatever you feel you must. But do not punish Nalaris. She did nothing wrong except love someone who loves her back. If your laws say that is a crime, then your laws need to change." The throne room erupted in angry shouts from the gathered nobles. Nobody had ever spoken to the queen like this. Nobody had ever suggested that their laws needed to change. The guards moved forward, ready to seize Taman, but the queen held up her hand to stop them. "You are brave, human. I will give you that. Foolish, but brave." She looked at her daughter, at the tears streaming down Nalaris's face, at the way she held her belly protectively. The queen felt her heart breaking. "Nalaris, you are my only child. You are the future of our family and our empire. Are you truly willing to give up everything for this human?" "Yes," Nalaris said without hesitation. "I love you, Mother. I have always loved you. But I love him too, and I will not abandon my family. Not him, and not our child." The queen closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her decision was made. "Then you leave me no choice. Guards, take the human to the detention level. He will remain there while I decide his fate. Nalaris, you will be confined to your quarters until further notice. You are both dismissed." "Mother, please," Nalaris started, but the queen turned away. "I have spoken." As the guards led Taman away, he looked back at Nalaris one last time. Their eyes met, and something passed between them that the queen did not understand. A connection that went beyond words, beyond species, beyond everything she thought she knew about the universe. The throne room emptied slowly, leaving the queen alone with her thoughts. She had always believed that being a good ruler meant upholding the law without exception. But now she wondered if perhaps being a good mother meant something different. She wondered if perhaps her daughter had found something that was worth more than any throne. But she was not ready to admit that yet. Not yet. Eamon sat in his cell on the detention level, staring at the energy barrier that kept him imprisoned. The cell was not uncomfortable. The Velthari were not cruel jailers. There was a sleeping platform, basic facilities, and even a small window that showed the palace gardens outside. But it was still a prison, and he was still trapped. He wondered how Nalaris was doing. Was she safe? Was the baby okay? The guards had separated them quickly, and he had not been able to speak to her since their meeting with the queen 3 days ago. 3 days of silence. 3 days of waiting to learn his fate. The door to the detention level opened and Commander Velthor entered. He was one of the highest-ranking military officers in the Velthari Empire, a warrior who had fought in dozens of battles. He stopped in front of Taman's cell and studied the human with his 4 eyes. "Human Taman," the commander said, "I am here to ask you questions." "I will answer what I can," Taman replied, standing up respectfully. "The queen has ordered that you remain here until she decides what to do with you. But I am not here on the queen's orders. I am here because we have a problem, and I think you might be able to help us." Taman raised his eyebrows. "What kind of problem?" Velthor activated a holographic display that showed a star map. Several systems on the outer edge of Velthari space were marked in red. "These are our frontier colonies. For the past 6 months, they have been under attack by Krelvan raiders. The Krelvan are a violent species who live by stealing from others. They attack our supply ships, raid our mining operations, and kill our people." "I am sorry to hear that," Taman said. "But I am an engineer, not a soldier. How can I help?" "Our military has been trying to stop them for months," Velthor continued. "We send warships to protect the colonies. We patrol the trade routes. We set up defensive stations. But nothing works. The Krelvan are like ghosts. They appear, attack, and disappear before we can respond. Last week, they destroyed an entire colony. 2,000 people died." The commander's face showed genuine pain. Taman realized that those 2,000 people were not just numbers to him. They were soldiers he commanded, citizens he had sworn to protect. "Our tactics are not working," Velthor admitted. "We fight with honor. We meet our enemies in open battle. We follow the rules of war that have guided our people for generations." "But the Krelvan do not follow these rules. They use cowardice and deception. And because of this, they are winning. And you want my advice? Taman asked carefully. The princess told me about the reactor incident. She said you think differently than we do. She said you see solutions where we see only problems. I need you to think differently about this war. I need solutions that we cannot imagine. Taman walked to the energy barrier and looked at the star map more closely. He studied the attack patterns, the locations of the colonies, the trade routes. His mind began working through the problem the way he had been trained, not as a Velthari warrior bound by honor and tradition, but as a human who understood that survival sometimes required unconventional thinking. Turn off the barrier, Taman said. Let me look at this properly. Velthor hesitated, then signaled to the guard. The energy barrier flickered and disappeared. Taman stepped out of his cell and approached the holographic display. Your people fight like this is a traditional war, Taman said, manipulating the display to show troop movements. You send large fleets to show your strength. You establish defensive positions and wait for the enemy to attack. You follow predictable patterns because that is the honorable way to fight. Yes, Velthor confirmed. This is how wars should be fought. But the Krelvan do not care about honor, Taman said. They care about profit and survival. They are not trying to defeat you in a fair fight. They are trying to steal what they need while losing as few of their own people as possible. You cannot defeat them by being more honorable. You need to be more unpredictable. Explain. Taman began outlining a strategy that was completely foreign to Velthari military thinking. Instead of large fleets, he suggested small, fast attack groups that could respond quickly to raids. Instead of defensive positions, he recommended aggressive patrols that hunted the raiders in their own territory. Instead of protecting every colony equally, he proposed deliberately leaving some targets lightly defended as bait, with hidden forces ready to trap any raiders who took the bait. This is deceptive, Velthor said slowly. We would be lying to our enemy about our strength and positions. Yes, Taman agreed. On Earth, we call these guerrilla tactics, small forces using mobility and surprise to defeat larger, more powerful enemies. It is not honorable by your standards, but it works. Velthor was quiet for a long moment, thinking through the implications. Everything Taman suggested went against Velthari military tradition, but he had to admit that traditional tactics were not working, and the humans' ideas had a certain brutal logic to them. If I bring this to the Queen, Velthor said carefully, and if she allows me to try your tactics, what happens if they fail? What happens if our soldiers die because we followed the advice of a human prisoner? Then you execute me, Taman said simply. If my ideas get your people killed, I will accept that punishment. But if they work, if they save lives and protect your colonies, then maybe the Queen will see that humans have value, that we are not just primitive creatures who got lucky with technology, that we have learned things from our struggles that can help others. Velthor studied the human for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. I will take your proposal to the Queen, but I warn you, human, if you are wrong, you will not be the only one who pays the price. The princess will suffer too. Her reputation is already damaged by this marriage. If you fail, she will be completely disgraced. I understand, Taman said quietly. But I believe in these tactics. They worked for humans when we were fighting among ourselves. They should work against the Krelvan too. The commander reactivated the energy barrier, trapping Taman in his cell again. But something had changed between them. There was a new respect in Velthor's eyes, a recognition that perhaps this human was more than he appeared to be. I will speak to the Queen today, Velthor said. Pray to whatever gods humans believe in that she listens. After the commander left, Taman sat back down on his sleeping platform. He thought about Nalaris and their unborn child. He thought about the Queen's anger and the laws he had broken. He thought about the fact that his life now depended on the success of a military strategy against an enemy he had never seen. But most of all, he thought about the future. If his tactics worked, maybe it would change how the Velthari saw humans. Maybe it would show them that different did not mean inferior. Maybe it would give his child a chance to grow up in a world where being half-human was not a curse. He closed his eyes and waited. There was nothing else he could do. Queen Myraeth stood in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the frontier colonies. Commander Velthor had just finished presenting the humans' tactical proposals, and the room was filled with angry voices. Every general and admiral present was shouting objections. "This is madness!" General Krathos bellowed. "We are Velthari warriors! We do not hide and deceive like cowards!" "These tactics have no honor," Admiral Silvera added. "Our ancestors would be ashamed to see us fight this way." The Queen raised her hand for silence. The room gradually quieted, though many of the officers still looked furious. "Commander Velthor," the Queen said coldly, "you trust the word of this human? The same human who broke our laws and dishonored my family?" "Your Majesty," Velthor replied carefully, "I trust that his tactics make strategic sense. The Krelvan have killed over 5,000 of our people in the past 6 months. Traditional warfare is not stopping them. Perhaps it is time to try something new." The Queen looked at the star map, at the red markers showing recent attacks. She thought about the reports she received daily of colonies destroyed, ships lost, families torn apart. She thought about her duty to protect her people, even if it meant setting aside her personal anger. "I will allow a trial," she said finally. "You may implement these tactics in one sector only. If they work, we will expand them. If they fail, we will return to our traditional methods, and the human will face execution for his failure." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Velthor bowed. "And, Commander," the Queen added, her voice sharp as a blade, "if even one of our soldiers dies because you followed bad advice from a primitive species, you will join the human in whatever punishment I devise." Velthor nodded grimly. He knew the risk he was taking, but he also knew that doing nothing would result in even more deaths. Over the next 3 weeks, Velthor carefully selected officers who were willing to try the new tactics. He chose the younger commanders, those who had seen friends die in the raids and were desperate for any solution. He divided his forces into small, fast-moving groups instead of the traditional large fleets. He positioned them not at the colonies themselves, but along likely approach routes where raiders might travel. The first test came on the 20th day. Krelvan ships approached a mining colony that appeared lightly defended. The raiders must have thought it was an easy target. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel and moved toward the colony, their weapons charging. Then Velthor's hidden forces struck from 3 directions at once. The raiders, expecting an easy raid, found themselves trapped in a coordinated attack. Within minutes, half their ships were destroyed. The survivors fled back into faster-than-light travel, but Velthari pursuit ships followed them, tracking their course. That night, Velthor sent his report to the Queen. 1 raid stopped. 0 Velthari casualties, significant enemy losses, and most importantly, they had tracked the raiders back to one of their hidden bases. The Queen read the report 3 times, not quite believing what she was seeing. She called Velthor to the palace immediately. "Explain this to me," she demanded, pointing at the casualty numbers. "How did you achieve 0 losses?" "The humans' tactics, Your Majesty," Velthor replied. "By hiding our strength and attacking from unexpected angles, we caught the raiders completely by surprise. They expected us to fight honorably. We did not." "And you tracked them to their base?" "Yes. This is another of the human suggestions." He said that on Earth, they learned that defending against attacks is not enough. You must attack the source. We are preparing an assault on the raider base now. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Proceed with the assault. But be careful, Commander. One success does not prove the humans' tactics are sound. The Krelvan may be learning from this defeat." "Yes, Your Majesty." The assault on the raider base happened 5 days later. Velthor used the same tactics, small, fast forces attacking from multiple directions, focusing on surprise rather than honor. The raiders fought hard, but they were not prepared for an enemy that thought like them. The base fell in less than 3 hours. More importantly, the Velthari forces captured the raiders' logs and navigation data. They learned the locations of 5 other raider bases and dozens of hidden supply caches. Within 2 weeks, Velthor had launched raids on all 5 bases. The Krelvan presence in Velthari space collapsed almost overnight. News of the victories spread throughout the Empire. People who had lived in fear for months celebrated in the streets. The frontier colonies, which had been planning evacuations, began rebuilding, and everyone wanted to know how the impossible had been achieved. The Queen read the reports from her commanders. Every one of them mentioned the humans' tactics. Every one of them admitted that these unconventional methods had saved countless lives. Some of the younger officers even started calling the new approach human-style warfare, speaking the term with respect rather than mockery. Elder Kirasol came to visit the Queen in her private chambers. "The people are talking, Your Majesty. They want to know who developed these new tactics." "I know," the Queen said tiredly. "They will learn eventually that it was the human, my daughter's husband. And when they learn this, what will you do?" The Queen looked out the window at her empire's capital city. She could see the celebrations in the streets below, families reunited, children playing without fear. All because a human prisoner had shared knowledge that her own military could not imagine. "I do not know," she admitted. "Our laws are clear. The human broke sacred traditions, but he also saved thousands of lives. How do I balance justice against gratitude?" "Perhaps," Kirasol suggested gently, "justice and gratitude do not need to be balanced. Perhaps they can exist together. The human broke your laws. This is true. But maybe the law itself was wrong. You are asking me to change 3,000 years of tradition. I am asking you to consider that traditions should serve your people, not trap them. The galaxy is changing, Your Majesty. Other species are forming alliances, sharing knowledge, building new futures together. The Velthari cannot stand alone forever, holding on to old rules while the universe moves forward without us." The Queen knew the elder was right. She had seen the reports from her diplomats. Other species were forming political and military partnerships. Some were even allowing interspecies marriages and families. The Velthari were becoming isolated by their own pride. "Have the human brought to me," the Queen ordered. "Not to the throne room, to my private study. I wish to speak with him alone." Kirasol bowed and left to arrange it. The Queen prepared herself for the conversation. She would speak to this human who had turned her world upside down. She would look into his eyes and try to understand what her daughter saw in him, and then she would make a decision that would change her empire forever, one way or another. She just hoped she had the wisdom to make the right choice. Taman was surprised when the guards came for him. He had expected to remain in his cell for weeks or even months while the Queen decided his fate. But here they were, 4 days after the raids ended, escorting him through the palace corridors. Instead of going to the throne room, they took him deeper into the royal residence. They stopped at a door carved with intricate patterns of stars and planets. One guard opened it and gestured for Taman to enter. Inside was a private study, much smaller and more personal than the grand throne room. Books lined the walls, and comfortable chairs sat around a low table. Queen Myraeth stood by the window, looking out at her city. "Leave us," she ordered the guards. They bowed and closed the door, leaving Taman alone with the queen. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the queen turned to face him. "Sit," she said, indicating one of the chairs. Taman sat carefully, aware that he was in the presence of one of the most powerful beings in this part of the galaxy. The queen sat across from him, and for the first time, Taman saw her not as a ruler, but as a mother. There was pain in her eyes, confusion, anger still, yes, but something else too, something that looked almost like curiosity. "My military commanders tell me that your tactics have saved thousands of lives," the queen said. "They tell me that the Krelvan raids have stopped. They tell me that my people are calling you a genius." "I am not a genius, your majesty," Taman said quietly. "I only shared knowledge that humans learned from our own mistakes. We fought many wars among ourselves before we learned to reach for the stars. Those wars taught us hard lessons about survival." "Your species fights among itself?" "We did for thousands of years. Wars over land, resources, religion, pride. Terrible wars where millions died. But we learned from them. We learned that sometimes the enemy you cannot see is more dangerous than the enemy you can. We learned that flexibility wins battles that strength alone cannot. We learned that honor is important, but survival is necessary." The queen was quiet, processing this. "My people believe that honor in battle is more important than victory." "Then your people have never faced extinction," Taman said gently. "When you are fighting for survival, you learn to do whatever works. Humans nearly destroyed ourselves several times. We are still here because we learned to adapt." "And you think the Velthari need to adapt?" "I think every species needs to adapt. The galaxy is big, your majesty. There are many different peoples with many different ways of thinking. If you only know one way to solve problems, you will eventually face a problem you cannot solve." The queen stood up and walked to a shelf, pulling down an ancient book. "This contains the laws of my people, every law we live by, every tradition we follow. It has guided us for 3,000 years. She opened it to a specific page. "This is the law you broke, the law against royal interspecies marriage. Do you know why this law exists?" "To protect the purity of your bloodline," Taman replied. "Yes, but also to protect my family from weakness. When different species mix, the children are often weak. They have health problems. They do not fit in either world. They suffer. This law was created not from hate, but from compassion, to prevent suffering. With respect, your majesty. That law was created before modern medicine and genetics. Before we understood that genetic diversity can create strength, not just weakness. Your law was made with good intentions, but it is based on old knowledge that is no longer true." The queen slammed the book shut. "You dare to tell me my ancestors were wrong?" "I dare to say that they made the best decision they could with the knowledge they had. But we have new knowledge now. Medical science has advanced. We can monitor hybrid pregnancies and ensure the children are healthy. We can treat problems that would have been fatal 100 years ago. The galaxy has changed, your majesty. Your laws should change with it." Before the queen could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. The study door burst open and guards rushed in, followed by Princess Nalaris. "Mother, there is an attack!" she cried. "Assassins in the palace!" The queen moved instantly, her warrior training taking over. She grabbed a weapon from a hidden panel in the wall. "Where?" "The East Wing. They are coming this way." "This way?" The queen's eyes widened. "They are targeting us specifically." Taman realized what was happening. "They are coming for me. Someone does not want me to live long enough for you to pardon me." The queen's face hardened. "Guards, protect my daughter. Taman, stay behind me." "Mother, no!" Nalaris pushed into the room. "I will not leave you." "You are pregnant," the queen shouted. "Think of your child." I am thinking of my child, Nalaris shouted back. I am thinking that if Taman dies, my child grows up without a father. The sounds of fighting grew closer. Weapons fire echoed in the hallways. The guards formed a defensive line at the study door. Taman wished he had a weapon, but there was nothing. He was just a human, weak compared to the Velthari warriors. The assassins broke through. They were Velthari, dressed in black armor with no insignia. Traitors from within the Empire itself. They fired at the guards, killing 2 instantly. The Queen returned fire, her shots precise and deadly, but there were too many assassins. One of them broke through the defensive line and charged directly at Taman. The assassin raised a blade, clearly intending to kill the human and make it look like the Queen's guards had done it. Taman had a split second to react. He dove forward inside the assassin's reach, using techniques he had learned in basic military training on Earth. He grabbed the assassin's arm and twisted, but the Velthari was much stronger. The blade came down. Nalaris screamed and threw herself between Taman and the assassin. The blade meant for Taman's heart struck her in the shoulder instead. She collapsed, blood flowing from the wound. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. The Queen roared with rage and killed the assassin with a single shot. The remaining guards overwhelmed the other assassins, and Taman caught Nalaris as she fell, cradling her in his arms. "No, no, no," he whispered, pressing his hand against her wound to stop the bleeding. "Stay with me. Please stay with me." Nalaris looked up at him, her eyes unfocused with pain. "I could not let him kill you." "You foolish, brave, wonderful woman," Taman said, tears streaming down his face. "You should have let me die." "Never," she whispered. Then her eyes closed. The Queen dropped her weapon and fell to her knees beside them. For the first time since Taman had met her, the Queen looked lost. She touched her daughter's face with trembling hands. "Call the doctors," she ordered, her voice breaking. "Call them now, and find out who sent these assassins. I want every one of them found and brought to me alive." The guards rushed to obey. Taman held Nalaris, feeling her blood warm on his hands, and prayed to every god he could think of that she would survive, that their child would survive, that somehow this nightmare would end with his family intact. The Queen looked at him across her daughter's unconscious body. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something changed between them. The Queen saw not a law-breaking criminal, but a man who loved her daughter enough to die for her, a man her daughter loved enough to die for in return. And Taman saw not a terrifying monarch, but a mother who was just as scared as he was. "Please," he said simply, "please save her." "I will," the Queen promised. "Whatever it takes, I swear it." The medical bay was in chaos. Doctors rushed around Princess Nalaris, working desperately to stabilize her condition. Taman stood outside the treatment room, his hands still stained with her blood, watching through the transparent wall. The Queen stood beside him, equally helpless. "The blade was poisoned," one of the doctors reported grimly. "We have neutralized the poison, but it has caused extensive damage to her internal organs. She needs immediate surgery." "Then operate," the Queen commanded. "Your Majesty, we cannot. The poison has affected her hybrid pregnancy in ways we do not understand. Her body chemistry is different from a normal Velthari because of the human genetic component. If we operate now, we might kill both the princess and the child. We need time to study her condition, but we do not have time." Taman stepped forward. "What about human doctors? Maybe they would understand the human side of her biology better." The lead physician shook his head. "Even if we contacted Earth immediately, it would take days for their doctors to arrive. The princess does not have days. She has hours at best." The Queen stood frozen, her worst nightmare unfolding before her eyes. Her daughter was dying, and there was nothing she could do. All her power, all her authority, all her empire meant nothing in the face of this simple, terrible truth. Then Taman said something that changed everything. "What about emergency communications? Can we reach Earth faster than normal?" "Yes," the Queen said slowly. "Emergency diplomatic channels can reach Earth in minutes. But even if we contact them..." "We have emergency slip-space transport," Taman interrupted. "Experimental technology that Earth has been developing. It can move a small ship from Earth to here in less than 6 hours instead of days. But it is dangerous and expensive." The Queen looked at him. "You would ask your people to risk a dangerous journey to save her?" "I would ask my people to save my wife and child," Taman said fiercely, "and I think they will come." The Queen made her decision instantly. "Commander Velthor, open emergency communications to Earth immediately. Tell them we have a medical crisis and need their best doctors here as fast as possible. Tell them we will pay any cost they demand." "Your Majesty," Elder Kirasol said quietly. She had appeared in the medical bay without anyone noticing. "Do you understand what you are doing? You are asking a human world for help. You are admitting that we cannot save the princess on our own. You are showing weakness to another species." "I am saving my daughter," the Queen said flatly. "I do not care about pride. I do not care about politics. I only care that Nalaris lives." The elder smiled. "Then you are learning what it means to be a mother first and a queen second. I am proud of you." The communication went out within minutes. The response came even faster. Earth's government agreed immediately to send a medical team. They had been testing their emergency slip-space transport and would use this as an opportunity to prove its worth. The journey that usually took 3 days would take 6 hours. Those 6 hours were the longest of the Queen's life. She stayed by her daughter's bedside, while the Velthari doctors did everything they could to keep Nalaris stable. Taman stayed beside her, holding his wife's hand, talking to her even though she could not hear him. The Queen watched him and finally began to understand. This human, who looked so small and weak compared to her people, had strength of a different kind. He had the strength to love someone completely, to stand beside her even when the universe seemed against them, to risk everything for a chance at happiness. These were not the qualities of a primitive species. These were the qualities that mattered most. "Taman," the Queen said quietly, "when this is over, when my daughter is well again, I will need to know everything about human medicine, human science, human ways of thinking. If we are to have hybrid children in our empire, we need to understand both species equally." Taman looked up at her, hope flickering in his eyes. "Does that mean—" "It means I am considering changing our laws," the Queen said. "I am not promising anything yet, but I am willing to learn." "That is more than I was willing to do before." The human medical team arrived exactly 6 hours after the emergency call, exhausted from the brutal slip-space journey but ready to work. They brought equipment the Velthari had never seen before, tools designed specifically for human biology. The lead doctor was a woman named Dr. Hayes, who had experience with genetic anomalies. She examined Nalaris quickly, consulting with the Velthari physicians. "This is remarkable," she said. "I have never seen anything like this. The hybrid pregnancy has created a completely new biochemistry. But I think I understand what is happening. The poison is affecting the human genetic components, which are in turn affecting the Velthari components. We need to treat both sides simultaneously." "Can you do it?" the Queen asked. "I can try," Dr. Hayes said honestly, "but I need to work with your doctors. Neither of us can do this alone. We need both human and Velthari knowledge working together." For the next 8 hours, doctors from 2 different worlds operated on Princess Nalaris. They shared knowledge, learned from each other, and created new medical techniques on the spot. It was improvised and desperate and brilliant. Finally, Dr. Hayes emerged from the operating room, exhausted but smiling. She is stable. The poison has been neutralized completely. The baby is fine. They both need rest, but they are going to survive." The Queen felt her legs give out. She sat down heavily, relief washing over her like a physical force. Taman laughed and cried at the same time, unable to process the emotions flooding through him. "Thank you," the Queen said to Dr. Hayes. "Thank you for saving my daughter. Name your price. Whatever you want, it is yours." Dr. Hayes shook her head. "We do not want payment, Your Majesty. We did this because it was the right thing to do. Because someday, we might need your help in return. Because this is what civilized species do for each other." The Queen understood. This was not about debt or honor or politics. This was about something simpler and more profound. This was about beings helping beings, species helping species, building connections that went beyond laws and traditions. She stood up and faced the human doctor. "You have shown me something today. You have shown me that my people's belief in self-sufficiency was wrong. That we cannot face every challenge alone. That accepting help is not weakness but wisdom." "Your Majesty," Taman said hesitantly, "does this mean you will accept our marriage?" The Queen looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "It means I am willing to try. I cannot change everything overnight, but I will work to change our laws. I will work to make our empire a place where your daughter can grow up proud of both sides of her heritage. This I promise you." It was not everything Taman had hoped for, but it was enough. It was a beginning. 3 days later, Princess Nalaris woke up in her hospital bed to find her mother sitting beside her. The Queen had barely left her daughter's side since the surgery. "Mother," Nalaris said weakly, "is the baby—" "Fine," the Queen assured her. "Everything is fine. You are both going to be perfectly healthy." Nalaris relaxed. Then she asked, "And Taman?" "He is here. He has been here the whole time. Do you want me to bring him in?" "Yes, please." The Queen stood up and paused at the door. "Nalaris, I am sorry. I was so focused on our laws and our traditions that I forgot what matters most. I forgot that you are my daughter and I love you. I forgot that your happiness should be more important than my pride. Mother, Let me finish," the Queen said gently. "I do not fully understand your love for this human. I may never fully understand it. But I have seen that it is real. I have seen that you would die for each other. And I have learned that sometimes the old ways need to make room for new ones. So I will try. I will work to change our laws and make our empire a better place for your family. This I swear to you." Tears ran down Nalaris's face. "Thank you, Mother. That is all I ever wanted." The Queen left to find Taman. As she walked through the halls of the palace, she realized that everything had changed. She had changed. She had learned that being a good queen sometimes meant being a good mother first, and being a good mother meant accepting that her daughter's path was not the one she had planned, but it was the right path nonetheless. She found Taman asleep in a chair outside the medical bay, exhausted from days of worry. She gently woke him up. "Your wife is awake," she said. "She wants to see you." Taman jumped up, suddenly alert. "She is okay?" "She is more than okay. Go to her." As Taman rushed into the medical bay, the Queen stood alone in the corridor and smiled. It was a small smile, and it disappeared quickly, but it was real. For the first time since this whole situation began, she felt hope instead of anger. And that was something worth holding on to. 3 months had passed since the assassination attempt. The palace buzzed with activity as preparations were made for a ceremony that nobody had ever imagined would happen. Queen Myra stood in her private chambers, wearing formal robes of state, preparing to face her people and announce a change that would reshape the Velthari Empire. Elder Kirazol entered the room. The guests are gathering, Your Majesty. Representatives from 12 different species have arrived to witness this moment, including a delegation from Earth led by their ambassador. Earth's ambassador, the Queen repeated thoughtfully. I never thought I would be hosting human dignitaries in my throne room. Times change, Kirasol said with a knowing smile. Sometimes for the better. The Queen looked at herself in the mirror. She looked older than she had 3 months ago. The stress of nearly losing her daughter had left its mark, but she also looked different in other ways. There was less rigidity in her expression, less absolute certainty. She had learned that doubt was not weakness, but the beginning of wisdom. Have they found all the conspirators? She asked. Yes. Lord Thalkos and his followers have been arrested. They confessed to hiring the assassins. They believed that by killing the human and blaming it on you, they could force you to crack down on all interspecies relationships and return the empire to the old ways. Instead, they achieved the opposite, the Queen said bitterly. Their attack showed me that clinging to old ways creates violence and suffering. They forced me to make a choice, and I chose my daughter over tradition. It was the right choice. The Queen turned to face the elder. Was it? I am about to abolish laws that have stood for 3,000 years. I am going to tell my people that everything they believed about bloodline purity was wrong. Some of them will never forgive me. Some of them, Kirasol agreed. But others will thank you, the younger generation especially. They have been watching humans and other species form partnerships and families, and they have wondered why the Veltari must remain separate. You are giving them permission to follow their hearts instead of old rules. I am also creating practical problems, the Queen said. Hybrid children will have medical needs we do not fully understand. Education systems will need to be changed. Social structures will shift. This is not a simple matter of changing one law. This is changing how our entire society functions. All necessary changes create problems, Kirasol replied. The question is whether the problems of change are worse than the problems of staying the same. I think you have already decided that answer. The Queen nodded slowly. She had indeed decided. Watching human and Velthari doctors work together to save her daughter had shown her what cooperation could achieve. Seeing Taemin's love for Nalaris had shown her that emotions did not respect species boundaries. And knowing that her granddaughter would be born into a world that might reject her had shown the Queen that her laws created unnecessary pain. It is time, she said. Let us go make history. The throne room was packed with people, nobles, military officers, diplomats from a dozen worlds, and media recording everything for broadcast across the empire. Princess Nalaris sat in a place of honor, her belly swollen with late pregnancy. Beside her sat Taemin, wearing formal Velthari clothing that had been specially made to fit his smaller frame. The Queen entered and everyone stood. She walked to her throne with her head high, every inch the powerful ruler she had always been. But when she spoke, her voice carried something new, humility. My people, she began. 3 months ago, my daughter came before me and told me she had married a human. I was angry. I felt betrayed. I believed she had dishonored our family and violated our most sacred laws. I ordered the human imprisoned and considered exiling my own daughter for her transgression. The room was completely silent. Everyone knew this story, but hearing the Queen speak it aloud was still shocking. I was wrong, the Queen continued. Not wrong to care about our laws and traditions. Those things matter. They give us structure and identity. But I was wrong to value those things more than I valued my daughter's happiness. I was wrong to judge the human without understanding him. And I was wrong to believe that our old ways were the only right ways. She gestured to Taemin. This human saved thousands of Velthari lives by sharing military tactics that our own generals could not imagine. He risked his life to protect my daughter during an assassination attempt. And when my daughter lay dying from a poison that our doctors could not treat, He brought human physicians who worked with our doctors to save her. He has proven his worth not through words but through actions." The Queen paused, letting her words sink in. "I have spent these past 3 months studying the laws of other species. I have learned that many advanced civilizations allow interspecies families. I have learned that genetic diversity often creates strength rather than weakness. I have learned that the galaxy is changing, and we must change with it or be left behind." She took a deep breath. "Therefore, effective immediately, I am abolishing the law that forbids royal interspecies marriage. I am establishing new laws to protect and support hybrid families. I am creating medical and educational programs to ensure that children like my granddaughter will have everything they need to thrive. And I am formally recognizing the marriage of Princess Nalaris and Taemin as legitimate and binding." The room erupted. Some people cheered, others shouted in protest. The Queen raised her hand for silence, and gradually the noise died down. "I understand that some of you disagree with this decision," she said. "I understand that some of you believe I am destroying our culture and betraying our ancestors. But I ask you to trust me. I ask you to give this new path a chance. And I ask you to remember that our strength as a people has always come from our ability to adapt and overcome challenges. This is simply another challenge, and we will overcome it as we have overcome all others." She gestured for Nalaris and Taemin to approach. They walked forward and knelt before the throne. The Queen stood and placed her hands on their heads in the traditional blessing gesture. "Princess Nalaris and Prince Consort Taemin," she said formally, using his new title for the first time. "I recognize your marriage before all witnesses gathered here. May your union bring strength to our family and our empire. May your child be healthy and loved. And may you both remember that you have not only my permission, but my blessing." Nalaris looked up at her mother with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Mother. Thank you for teaching me that love is stronger than law," the Queen replied quietly. Then louder, for everyone to hear, "Rise, both of you. Take your places as full members of this royal family." The ceremony continued with formal oaths and traditional rituals, but the most important moment had already passed. The moment when a queen chose progress over tradition, love over pride, and her daughter's happiness over her own comfort. After the ceremony, there was a reception where diplomats and nobles mingled. The human ambassador approached the Queen with a warm smile. "Your Majesty, that was a historic moment. Earth's government wants you to know that we are honored by this development. We hope this marks the beginning of a stronger relationship between our peoples." "I hope so as well," the Queen replied. "And I must thank Earth for sending the medical team that saved my daughter. We owe you a debt." "No debt," the ambassador said. "Just friendship. That is all we ask." The Queen found herself smiling. "Friendship? Yes, I think we can manage that." Later that evening, after the guests had left and the palace had grown quiet, the Queen visited her daughter's chambers. She found Nalaris and Taemin sitting together, his hand resting gently on her belly where their child grew. "May I come in?" the Queen asked. "Of course, Mother," Nalaris said happily. The Queen sat down across from them. "How is the baby?" "Strong," Nalaris said. "The doctors say she will be born within the week." "She?" The Queen's eyes widened. "You know the gender?" "Yes, a daughter. We are going to name her Hana. It is a human name that means flower in one of their languages." The Queen tested the name on her tongue. "Hana. It is a good name. Simple, beautiful, easy for both species to pronounce." "That was the idea," Taemin said. "We wanted her to have a name that belongs to both worlds." The Queen reached out and gently touched her daughter's belly. She felt the baby kick against her palm and smiled. "She is strong indeed. She will need that strength. Her life will not be easy. There will always be people who see her as wrong or unnatural, who think she does not belong anywhere. She belongs with us, Nalaris said firmly. That is all that matters. Yes, the Queen agreed. You are right. Family is what matters. She looked at Taman. I misjudged you, human. I saw you as a threat when you were actually a gift. You brought new ideas to my empire. You saved my daughter's life. And you are going to help raise my granddaughter. I am grateful for all of this. Thank you, Your Majesty, Taman said, bowing his head respectfully. Call me Myra Eth, the Queen said, at least in private. We are family now, after all. Taman looked surprised and pleased. Thank you, Myra Eth. The three of them sat together in comfortable silence for a while, just being a family. The Queen thought about everything that had changed in the past few months. She had lost her absolute certainty, but gained something more valuable: flexibility. She had given up some of her pride, but gained respect from unexpected places. She had changed laws that seemed unchangeable and discovered that the empire did not collapse. In fact, it seemed stronger than before. 1 week later, Princess Nalaris went into labor. Both human and Velthari doctors attended, working together with the easy cooperation they had developed. The birth was difficult, as all hybrid births would likely be, but mother and child both survived. The Queen held her granddaughter for the first time and marveled at what she saw. Little Hana had purple skin like her mother, but softer features like her father. She had 4 eyes like a Velthari, but they were rounder like human eyes. She had the best of both species mixed into one perfect tiny being. Hello, Hana, the Queen whispered. Welcome to the galaxy. You are something new, something special. You are the first, but you will not be the last. You are the beginning of a future where different species are not separate but united, where love matters more than genetics, where families can be built by choice as much as by birth. Baby Hana yawned and grabbed the Queen's finger with surprising strength. The Queen laughed, a sound that startled everyone in the room because they had rarely heard her laugh before. She has a good grip, the Queen said. She will be a warrior like her grandmother, or an engineer like her father, Taman suggested with a smile. Or a diplomat like she will need to be, Nalaris said, walking between 2 worlds and bringing them together. Whatever she becomes, the Queen said, she will be loved. This I promise her. I promise all of you. Things will be different now, but different can be good. We will face challenges, yes. There will be people who resist these changes. There will be medical complications we do not expect. There will be social problems we must solve. But we will face all of it together, as a family and as an empire. She handed Hana back to Nalaris and stood up. I need to address the empire. They need to know that the first hybrid child has been born healthy and strong. They need to see that the future is not something to fear, but something to embrace. As the Queen walked out of the medical bay, she felt lighter than she had in months. She had made the right choice. She knew this with absolute certainty. And if anyone doubted it, she would simply show them Hana. One look at that perfect little face would prove that love could indeed cross any boundary, overcome any obstacle, and create miracles. The Queen stopped at the door and looked back at her family. Her daughter, exhausted but glowing with happiness. Her son-in-law, so different from anything she had imagined but perfect in his own way. And her granddaughter, sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms, unaware that she represented the future of an entire empire. Welcome to the family, human, the Queen said with a genuine smile. Thank you for teaching this old queen that she still had much to learn. Taman smiled back. Thank you for being willing to learn. And with that, a new era began for the Velthari Empire. An era of cooperation instead of isolation, of flexibility instead of rigid tradition, of families built by love instead of limited by law. It would not be easy, but the best things never were. And as Queen Myra walked through her palace to address her people, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time: hope for the future. And that made everything worth it.